Hi everyone, this is Dayu from EcommOps. Today I'm going to talk about 5 types of products that you should really avoid trying to dropship or fulfilling from China from a supply chain perspective. And we're also going to have a bonus talking about some products that you might be careful of, especially if you're dropshipping for various reasons. Alright, let's go. So first, starting with the products that you definitely do not want to dropship or fulfill from China, and the reasons why. So there are a couple reasons. So one, some products are just inherently difficult to ship. They might be breakable, whatever it might be, and you're just gonna have a lot of issues shipping them. The other reason is that some types of products, they're just going to be completely restricted in terms of shipping lines, or maybe you can't even ship them at all. Now, it's not saying that if you run an e-commerce store, you can't fulfill these type of products, but these are probably the types of products that you do not want to be shipping from China, but you might want to be sea freighting it over to a US warehouse and shipping it from the US. In no particular order, starting with number 1, and that's oversized products. So there's actually 2 types of oversized products that might be an issue. So first is just literally oversized. So most efficient shipping methods, ePacket, YunExpress, special lines, they have limits on the size of a package. So typically speaking, it is the height times length times width in centimeters. It cannot be greater than 90 centimeters, and any one dimension can't be longer than 60 centimeters. So for example, I don't know, you're probably not going to do this, but if you're trying to sell a sofa, for example, it's just not going to work. It's going to be way oversized, and you just literally can't ship it by these usual fulfillment lines. The other reason why you want to avoid kind of oversized products is that they might not be oversized, but you actually want to avoid products that are very high volume, like just very big, but very light. So let's say you want to sell a pillow, I guess, a feather pillow. The reason you don't want to avoid that is because pretty much every line, and by the way, this includes some local lines as well, is that when something is super big, but also very, very light, they're going to charge you for what's called a volumetric weight. Now, every line is going to be a little bit different, but in the example of a pillow might actually weigh something like a couple hundred grams, but it's massive, and if you don't like vacuum seal it, then by volumetric weight, it might actually be something like 1 kilogram, for example. And although it's shippable, but you definitely do not want to be paying the prices of a 1 kilogram package if something is much lighter. So definitely something you want to avoid as well. Now, the second type of products that you probably want to avoid shipping from China, especially now, are super heavy products. If you want to sell dumbbells, for example, do not ship them from China. So first of all, many lines, ePacket, many YunExpress lines, they have a weight limit. Many of them are actually 2 kilograms, which is actually not that much. I mean, if you ship a heavy dumbbell, it's going to be way over 2 kilograms. Some lines have maybe 20 to 30 kilograms, but still, if you're shipping something super, super heavy, it's just going to limit you in the lines you can use and the countries that you can ship to. Not only that though, especially now, shipping prices are still pretty high because of COVID disruption. So shipping prices are directly calculated by weight, which means the heavier something is, the much more expensive it is, because they have to be going on these freight planes, and freight space is expensive, and it's calculated by weight. So if you're selling something that's really heavy, more than a couple kilograms, like honestly, you want to reconsider it. I have very rarely seen our clients, at least recently, get very successful with something that's very heavy, even if it's shippable, because it's too expensive to ship. The third type of products you really want to avoid shipping from China or internationally are just really fragile items. Let's take a wine glass or a pack of wine glasses. You really want to avoid that. The problem is that international shipping is a little bit brutal. Like stuff gets packed on planes, especially direct parcels. Like they're not put in nice pallets, they get put in planes, and then they also have to face the rigors of local shipping as well in that processing stage. And if you're selling something like a wine glass, you're gonna see breakage rates of like anywhere between 10 to 50%, even depending on how well your supplier packs it. And the problem is that the better your supplier packs it, I mean, for example, you can actually pack it in like a rock solid box, for example, but that's gonna add so much weight that it's gonna kill all your margins anyways. So definitely avoid fragile items. The fourth type of product you really want to avoid are clearly liquid products. You know, anything that's like liquid in a bottle. The reason being is that a lot of these types of products, they cannot be shipped on planes. You know, on most lines. Now there are some ePacket special liquid lines, but they're really not great, and there's just not that many options, and they're going to be very, very inconsistent, and just like not a lot of options to ship these liquids. Now that being said, there's some like if your liquid is very, very small, like if you're selling mascara, that tends to be more okay. If you're selling like a small tub of cream, that tends to be more okay as well, but definitely avoid pure liquid products. And finally, the fifth category of products you really want to avoid or you just can't ship are going to be single batteries. And that includes battery packs. That includes products that act like a battery pack. It's just not possible on planes, and honestly it's kind of irresponsible as well. Now batteries within products are okay on certain lines, but single batteries, no planes are going to allow it if they know. And the reason why it's irresponsible is because single batteries or power banks, they don't have a closed circuit, so they are actually a fire hazard and they hold a charge as well. And it's something that we actually do not ever do. There are definitely these kind of shady lines that kind of just try to hide it, but it's a literal fire risk. So if you want to do power banks, you definitely have to figure out how to use sea freight and get it to a local warehouse and use ground shipping. By the way, even if you're shipping in the US, you're not allowed on planes either. You have to use actually ground shipping in order to get them to the destination. All right, so those are the products that I definitely do not advise you to ship at all from China. And next up, I want to talk about a couple products that you probably want to have some special considerations for. You can do it, but you definitely want to be careful and mindful of these considerations. The first one is going to be sort of liquids. I kind of talked about this before earlier as well, but stuff like mascaras, for example, or creams. They can be shipped. However, they definitely do need to be shipped with care. They need to be shipped on the right lines. Some countries are just going to have issues with them, and your supplier needs to declare them carefully as well in terms of customs. Now, I won't go into details there, but if you're going to ship something like that, make sure you work with a supplier fulfillment agent who actually knows what they're doing. And if they're telling you that they have to use a special line or do a certain thing, packed in a certain way, definitely trust them on that. The second one is going to be products with batteries in them. Now, you can't ship batteries on any line, but stuff with batteries you can actually ship. However, you can't ship batteries out of mainland China airports. Some suppliers might try, but you're going to have a very, very high return rate, just a lot of issues and just a lot of inefficiency. The only airport that it's technically China is in Hong Kong that can actually ship products with batteries in them. So if you want to sell a product with a battery, it's definitely doable, but you definitely need to use a special line or a fulfillment agent that uses a special line that uses something like YunExpress or like 4PX, for example, but their battery line that actually goes through Shenzhen and flies out of Hong Kong airport. If you want to do a battery product, like definitely don't find an agent that's in Shanghai or somewhere up north. If you want efficient fulfillment, you definitely want them to be based in Shenzhen and using the right lines. Another one is clothing, especially if you're drop shipping and you're not really committing to inventory. Clothing has a couple of issues. First issue is sizing. Chinese sizing is just all over the place, and it's very different than Western sizing as well. Something that's going to be an XXXL is probably going to be like a medium male in the US sometimes. And so that's going to be a huge issue, obviously, if you don't get the sizing right. And the other problem with clothing is that like there's so many SKUs sometimes as well, and you have a much higher chance of running out of a single SKU and just not being able to fulfill some orders and actually negatively impacting your store. And actually on that point, not only clothing, but for any product with too many SKUs, if you're selling bags, for example, you have 100 SKUs and you don't have your own supply, like that's going to cause you a lot of issues, because SKU management with that many SKUs is going to make you run out of stock on certain things. And obviously you could also commit to stock, but if you have 100 different SKUs, 100 different varieties, 100 different colors, like you're going to pay so much and so much risk to commit to that stock up front, or you're going to risk inefficient fulfillment. And by the way, this is something that I'm going to talk about in more detail in a different video, but you want to think about, why do you have so many SKUs? There's been a lot of studies showing that less SKUs is actually better as long as you provide enough. So don't just see some AliExpress listing and they have like 40 different colors and you add them all to your store. Not only is it not actually effective in terms of sales, but it's going to create a lot of issues when something runs out. Another one you want to be careful of are very, very expensive products, like $50 or $100 plus in terms of just the product price. It's not to say that you shouldn't consider high ticket products where it doesn't work. I've seen high ticket products work, but you want to be really careful with selling these kind of more expensive products unless you can control your supply chain better, unless you have a trusted supplier you can trust. Because what tends to happen with these products is that a lot of AliExpress sellers and maybe cheaper agents, they don't have too much margin on these products. So if something is $50 and something gets lost, one order could literally wipe out like 40 orders of their profit, which means they're going to be very hesitant in helping you with after sales, refunding you or resending it again, or they're going to just jack up the margins to make up for it. But either way, it's not a good situation for you. So I think that if you're going to sell a more expensive product, definitely it could work, but make sure that you control your supply chain. You either have the inventory yourself, or you work with a fulfillment partner like us, and we work with you and figure out how that would actually make it work without overcharging you, and figure out the right way to figure out the after sales process if there's any issues. Now, this one's going to be a little bit interesting, but you want to be really careful. If you're looking at AliExpress, for example, selling a product that has one or very few sellers and very low orders. Now, this is not talking about this is not a trending product or anything like that, right? Because maybe this is something that's going to be something that no one knows about and you can really blow it up and you have no competition. But the problem is that, especially if you're just looking at AliExpress, is that sometimes when this happens, it's because this type of product just wasn't selling well and this seller is just trying to offload that product, but they don't have a lot of units of it. So even if you sell it really, really well and you start scaling up, they have no more inventory. And most factories, even if they want to make more of this, they might have an MOQ of thousands of units, if they're even making it. So you're going to have an issue that if you try to scale this up, then you're going to have a lot of issues that you might not even be able to fulfill orders because no factories are making it. If you want to do something like this, definitely, work with an agent. Try to find an agent as soon as possible and just confirm with them that, hey, this seems like something that's not selling very well. Our factory is actually producing it. Are you able to help me and actually scale this up to anything reasonable before you make a bunch of orders and hope that AliExpress is going to help you fulfill, or you're going to find some agent who's going to find this product for you. All right, so that's it for the list. Again, when you're thinking about products that you want to sell or not, it's so important not just to consider how well it's going to do, but also consider the supply chain as well. Because at the end of the day, no matter how well it sells, if you can't fulfill it, if it's too expensive to ship or it's going to break all the time, it's just not going to work for you. So you always want to not just think about marketing, think about the supply chain. It's really the second half of your business, and it's so important to consider that as well. And by the way, sometime later I do actually plan to shoot another video that talks about the products that are particularly good from a supply chain perspective for you to consider to sell. So look out for that later. Like this video, subscribe if you want to see that later. And we do run a premium fulfillment agency, EcommOps. So if you have 50 orders or higher, check us out, link below. Looking forward to hear from you. But again, this is Dayu from EcommOps. See you guys later.